Hello everyone, today's topic is of one party dominance. In this unit, we will study how election was held in a newly independent country and what are the challenges before the Election Commission of India to hold a free and fair election. And after the election, how Congress became a dominant party in the first election of 1951 and what are the key role played by the opposition parties in 1950s. So let's begin with the topic. As we all know, after the decolonization, India opted for a democratic elected government. But many countries after the decolonization was not establish a democratic government through an electoral process because they believed that nation democracy will bring difference and their nation unity was their first priority. But we Indian as a democratic value opted for an electoral process for establishing government. So these are the first and the foremost thing after the decolonization. And Dr. Sukumar Sen was became one of the chief election commissioner in 1950 for prepare a electoral process. Now let's come to the next topic, that rise of the Indian Nation Congress. Rise of the Indian Nation Congress. How Indian Nation Congress became the largest party. So as we all know, the legacy of the freedom struggle. What is that is means that we all know that Indian Nation Congress was established in 1885 by UOHM. It provided a platform for all sections of society against the atrocity of Britishers. It provided voice to the larger section of society that tell us the plights of the majority of Indians. They played a huge role in freedom struggle. These legacy of the Indian Nation Congress not played only important role in India's independence, but even after the partition, it remains continued. So the Indian Nation Congress, we can say that first of block, because at that time not any party was as much as popularized as Indian Nation Congress. So Indian Nation Congress were far ahead against the other parties, and it's very popularized among the masses also. So these are first and foremost reason for the rise of Indian Nation Congress in electoral rules. And second one is organizing force. Indian Nation Congress were very vital organized because as we know that it shared a identity, it shared a purpose that we will together a nation and we will together fight against the Britishers. So it's played a very important role to organize a country in a nation identity. That nation identity even reflected in Congress ideology and Congress policies also. So this is one of the other reason for the rise of Indian Nation Congress. What are the factors that contributed to the dominance of Congress? So first and foremost is the leadership of Jawaharlal Nehru. Jawaharlal Nehru had a socialist vision. He was a very charismatic leader. He had a broad vision at that time. So the Nehru popularity was very high among the masses. Even Gandhiji called him his successor. He was called as a successor of Gandhiji. So during freedom struggle, he was a companion of Gandhiji in everywhere. His vision was very broad. He not only assimilated the young radical thought, but at the same time he was also advocating the rights of the moderate, rights of the modest people. So that's why he was called the leader of all sections of society. So his popularity was very high among the masses. So that appeal also led to the Congress dominance. And the second was in social cohesion. The ideology of social cohesion in Indian Nation Congress that's advocate for social justice, economic development. Social justice, what does it means? So as you know, students, the social justice is that at that time we need it because caste, creed, Britishers' policies of divides and rule. So we are suffering for a very large time. So what we need social justice, we need equality, we need liberty, we need justice in everywhere, we need justice in political thoughts, we need justice in our daily life. So the Congress advocated the social justice. And economic development, what does it mean? Economic development means that we are very we are not so developed in economy. After the decolonization, we need a economic development so that we became a self-sufficient country and one of the developing country that later transformed into a developed country. So Congress vision of 5-year plan and mixed economy, all that popularized and also became a factor for Congress dominance. And legacy of freedom struggle, as I already discussed in earlier slide, that what are the role played in freedom struggle, how they become an organizing force in nation unity, and played a huge role in freedom struggle. So these are the factors that became very dominant in Congress victory in 1950s election. So 1950s election was a very important at that time. And now next is the first election of 1951. What are the challenges before the Election Commission of India? So as Sukumar Sen became the first election commissioner of 1951, first and foremost thing is how we are going to hold election for such a large constituency, because everyone who are above a certain age of 1921, who was above age of 21, was granted a voting right. So it leads to the 17 crore eligible voter. So that 17 crore eligible voter and preparing a electoral roll and constituency delimitation, it was a hectic task, and in such a large scale there was no election was held earlier, and for a newly independent country it was really a challenge. So it was one of foremost thing. And one interesting thing, in 17 crores eligible voters, 15% of them were illiterate, and these 17 crores were going to elect 3,200 MLAs and 489 Lok Sabha members. So because there was no qualification and no other things needed to vote in electoral process. And the second thing is logistical complexities. Managing such a large scale election needed infrastructure, and we as a newly independent country, we had no past experience of electoral process. So it's also became a challenge for election commission to hold an election. And fairness and transparency. And transparency was a first and foremost principle of any electoral process, where we need to hold fairness and transparency. But the election commission was very successful in fairness and transparency, because even those who lost the election of 1950s were also admitted that the election was held with fairness and transparency. So these are the challenges before the Election Commission of India at that time. What are the result of the Congress? The result of 1950s election was the Congress was in dominance in the first three elections. In 1951, Congress secured a landslide victory of 364 out of the 489 seat. What does it mean? So Congress became a largest party. It's won 3/4 of the seat. In 1957 also, in 1962 also. So Congress was in dominance in series of first three election. So it's maintained its legacy of 3/4 seat in first three electoral process. And one interesting fact is that in 1950s, when the election was held, it was held in such large scale that we are not prepared enough. So the election was postponed twice, in 1951 and held in 1951 and 1952. And the next topic is the Congress, a social and ideological coalition. Social justice. Social justice is one of the principles of Congress that appeal a diverse group. That means, what does it mean? It means that Congress appealed different strata of society, promising reform about the historical inequality. Historical inequality that I think you in historical inequality you guys are already studied in your earlier classes the historical inequalities of caste, class, untouchability. So, so these are even continued after the independence. So Congress promoted the social unity, social welfare, and addressing the idea of historical inequality and advocated for the right of marginalized section. And the second one is economic development. Economic development means Congress opted for a mixed economy that was not so much closed and open but mixed of both. It stressed on the agricultural development at the same time the industrialization also. So it's also a need of the country because as a newly independent country we had no infrastructure, we had no such a large scale agricultural production. We were so much based on the USA for grains and other things also. So so Congress was in a favor of agricultural and industrialization that led to that led to lots of dams formation, lots of institution formation, new seeds research in agriculture was developed at that time. And the third one is nation unity. Nation unity, what does it mean, students? Nation unity means the Congress championed a unified, a sense of nationality, a collective responsibility, emphasizing a shared destiny. It means that Congress advocated for nation unity, a nation where everyone have a same purpose, same idea. After the independence, during the Cold War, we went for a non-alignment movement. It was also a reflection of India's sovereignty and India's unity on its international relations. So India on international platform also reflected its nation unity. So Congress was championed of it because during freedom struggle when we needed that nation unity, so Congress was also dominant in its ideology at that time. In Congress dominance, that what is the nature of Congress dominance? Because we already know that many countries opted for one leader, one democracy, and one party. But in India, Congress dominance was not like as China as Cuba, where the one constituent, one party was in dominant for years. Congress was in dominant because of its ideology for social justice, its ideology for economic development, its ideology for nation unity. All these leads to the Congress dominance. It's not that we are a country opted for one party or system. PRI in Spain is also same sort of party popularity that led for its continuity for a larger time period. Congress ideology of accumulation of different strata of society, different thought, different ideology was also one of the reasons for Congress dominance. Like it's accommodated the revolutionary, pacifist, conservative, and it provided platform for numerous group. So these are the factors that contributed to the Congress dominance. Now let's come to the next slide. The emergence of opposition parties. So these opposition parties was emerged in 1950s. Some important role they played in 1960s and 70s election also. So only token representation in Lok Sabha and Raj Sabha they get, yet their presence played a very crucial role in maintaining the democratization of system, and they kept a check balance on the extreme majority of Congress. First is Socialist Party. Socialist Party organized within the Congress in 1934 by the group of young radical leaders. Later, it's formed a separate Congress Socialist Party. The Socialist Party's ideology was more on the welfare approach. Sometimes it's questioned Congress also that Congress was not doing enough for welfare of the major section of the society. So that's how the Socialist Party emerged because it's advocated more on the welfare approach. It's stressing more on the marginalized section voice. So the Socialist Party was one of the opposition parties in 1950s. And the second one is Communist Party of India. Communist Party of India, you guys already studied it in your earlier classes also, I hope. It's based on the Karl Marx ideology. Karl Marx ideology, where it talked about the working class and criticized the capitalist approach. They believe that the capitalist class exploit the working class to maximize its profit. And Communist Party's ideology were spread all over the world, and its impact also reflected in India's, which led to the formation of Communist Party of India. So Communist Party of India, one of the very popular party in India. It's mainly limited in West Bengal, Andhra Pradesh, and South Indian, and some part of Bihar also. So one interesting fact about Communist Party of India is Communist Party of India won 16 seats in the first general election of 1951, and it became the one of the largest opposition party. And only in India the Communist Party of India were formed government with the electoral process. And A.K. Gopal and S.A. Dange were the prominent leader of Communist Party of India. And Bharatiya Jansangh. Now come to the Bharatiya Jansangh. Bharatiya Jansangh was formed by the Shyama Prasad Mukherjee. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee was the founder of this party. And Bharatiya Jansangh roots from the RSS. It's advocated for one party, one culture, Akhand Bharat. What does it mean? Bharatiya Jansangh ideology is about Hindu dominance, a nation of Hindu dominance, a Hindu identity where the minority would be in a secondary citizenship. And they advocated for the Hindu majority state where no other religion, where no other caste will be remaining dominant, but only a Hinduism, a Hindu state will form in form of Akhand Bharat. So this Bharatiya Jansangh was in a token representation in 1950 election. Swatantrata Party. Swatantrata Party was promote more liberal and more free market approach. What does it mean? It means that Swatantrata Party wanted a US approach where a capitalist state formed, where the state played a very minimal role and it not give intervention in economic policies and policy making. So Swatantrata Party were more in favor of US rather than USSR. Swatantrata Party approach was not aligned with the masses at that time, because as a newly independent country we cannot afford a capitalist approach where the majority of the population was poverty ridden. We need a welfarist approach. So that is the reason that Swatantrata Party was not getting as much support to the masses, and later on Swatantrata Party wiped out with a little representation. So these are the famous opposition parties that emerged at that time. Now let's come to the next slide, and this is last slide also. The rise of opposition parties in 1950s. So as a growing dissatisfaction was one of the reasons for emergence of lot of opposition parties. First and foremost, economic disparity, social inequality, political corruption. So all these things were continued after the independence, and it's not wiped out from the society. So all this dissatisfaction led to the formation of lot of independent party. Let's say we can take the example of Communist Party of India, as Congress was in dominance in everywhere, but in Kerala in 1957 it won 60 seats out of the 126 and became and formed the government with EMS Namaburdi Prasad. So it's also reflects how the social inequality and political discontent not satisfied with the Congress and led to the another party formation there in Kerala state election. And second one is ideological diversity. The rise of opposition party reflected in the diversity of Indian society. Ideological diversity, even Congress was in a form. Congress ideology of accumulation always tried to accommodate revolutionary, pacifist, conservative, radical, and extremist thought. But sometimes these ideological differences were so large that even Congress was failed to accommodate these thoughts. Let's say, for example, of Congress versus BJS, Bharatiya Jansangh. So, the Congress ideology based on the social and welfare approach, its approach of secularism, but but the BJS Bharatiya Jansangh ideology based on Hinduism, Akhand Bharat, a Hinduist ideological state. So, these two ideology clashes with each other and cannot come together on one platform. So, these ideological differences led to the formation of another party that is called Bharatiya Jansangh. And third one is shifting political landscape. India was a very vast geographical country. A lot of regional party were also emerged that addressing the root cause of local population. And as the political and electoral system of the country evolved and new political parties were emerged, multi-party politics was popularized at that time. So a more competitive political system was formed. So these are the factors that led to the emergence of 1950s opposition parties. Even this opposition party was only in token representation in 1950s election, but they played a huge role in the politics of 1950s because their token representation kept a check balance on the government. They kept government criticism that made a better implementation of the policy, and better policy making came into existence. And some of the parties who are in token representation became the largest party in today's electoral process. Like Bharatiya Jansangh CPI was only a token representation in 1950s, but today they become the largest party. BJP was one of the opposition party. That role was not so much in earlier, but now became one of the largest party. So this is how our electoral process works, and this is how we became a democratic elected government, and how India shows to the world that it has electoral sense, it has a value of democratic government, that being a citizen of the country, they can know how to vote, they can choose their government. As during 1950s, a lot of European countries criticized government policy, and even Indian Chronicle written that it was the biggest gamble in the history. But the citizen of the country shows their political maturity by the successful election process of 1950s. And so all this is from my side, and these are some MCQs I have framed, so you guys can study these MCQs, you can practice this for your better exam preparation. And in NCRT also there are a lot of posters were given. You can take the reference of NCRT for your better exam preparation.